Welcome. This is all minus one quick shots. Folks, today, big news, BLM was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Also, BitChute is being gone after as some sort of alt-right group, alt-right, alt-tech, whereas they're just a free speech group. And of course, the big scandal with GameStop continues. The outrage of the elitist, that is off the charts. Comparing it to January 6th insurrection. This is expected. In a way, although I think that that's extreme, what we are seeing, like I said yesterday, is the rebellion of the plebes, of the lower class, of the workers, of the folks who are starting to wake up and understand that they are not actually being represented in the government or by the governments. And this is a good thing that folks are starting to see this. The issue at hand is that we must make proper alliances. The left, they wish to give more power to the government because somehow, with all of this authority in the government, they are going to change things, right? More power means better. That's the way the left looks at the world. More central control means, it won't be the oligarchs anymore, it'll be the people. It's never the case, folks. The people just become the oligarchs. You're just switching your role of power, and there will always be those who are oppressed. So everything that they say is a bunch of nonsense, and they literally just wish to enslave you. Now, they don't believe that because they see nature, the world itself, as a form of slavery, which perhaps you could make the philosophical case, but you cannot get away from the nature of our beings. We live in a material world, and every Marxist should understand this, being that they are strict materialists. We have a nature, and it is better to follow that nature than to not follow it or try to bend nature to our will. And this is a huge philosophical debate between the two lionized perspectives, if you would. The folks who are liberty-minded, on the other hand, they're not fully seeing the picture because many of them like the institutions, they like the government, they like the way things are to some extent. They see that it doesn't work, but they think, I can just keep voting in. I can keep voting in, folks, for all this. And it's like, no, you can't, bud. We need to break away. We need to start our own communities. We need to focus. Focus on male leadership because, again, this goes back to nature. Will there be good leaders that are women? Absolutely. Is that the norm? No. Should we shape our societies based on the small percentage of people who are not within the norm? No. But I am willing to give those folks a chance in a meritocracy. And see, that's because I am a freedom, liberty-minded person. I don't want to force anything, but I do understand that we should be propping up the intellectual, social, philosophical ideas, religious views that have existed all throughout all religions, throughout time, that men are the ones who need to take charge and lead. And this is a big problem, is that men currently now are blaming women for being terrible. Now, of course, women blame men for being terrible too. That's all part of feminism and all that man-hating misandry that they do. However, we need to start understanding that we are complementary beings that have natural biological roles as God intended us to have. We can see this all throughout the animal kingdom. And the first thing that men need to stop doing is blaming women and accept that they have allowed this to happen. You men out there, you have allowed our society to become feminized because you're trying to appease women instead of allowing women to come to you and respect you for your leadership and your masculinity. I will tell you right now, in my life, in my experience, and all of the things that I have been through, it is always those who take strong complete and total responsibility of their life that do the best. And those who would obfuscate it, those who would allow others to tell them how to think and what to do, and who would say, oh, it's not my fault, they will never do well. And again, that is part of the left. The left libertine hedonism is blaming others and not being responsible. This is a dichotomy in the end between good and evil, what is natural and unnatural. So, again, we as men need to take radical responsibility in all things. I had a horrible first wife, horrible first marriage. That was my fault. Not because I did everything wrong, though I did do things wrong, but because I picked her. Now when folks meet my current wife, we immediately are embraced because they see what a sweetheart and what a good person she is. I had to grow up. I had to be matured. I had to become a man. Before, I was a boy chasing my passions. Before, I allowed my hormones to rule my life. And many young men will do that. Many young men will put up with any woman who is pretty or cute, who allows them to have sex with them as long as they continue to allow them to have sex with them. This is a bad position. Sex cannot be a weapon in your relationships, in your marriages, with your significant other. That is not a thing to do. That is against the Christian principles as well. Paul the Apostle said this very specifically. He said, if you're going to withhold sexual relations from each other, then you should do so only in a time of prayer and fasting, in a time that you have decided that you would dedicate to God and focus on those things. Otherwise, share each other with each other appropriately. And we, of course, have a culture with a low expectation for sexual barriers, meaning almost anyone can have sex at any time with anybody, and this is all planned. Yevgeny Zematian talks about this in his book, We. Plato's Republic talks about this. This is in Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. These ideas are all leftist authoritarian ideas. Why must they do this? Because it destroys the nature of women and the nature of men. Men being somewhat possessive of and protective of their wives and their progeny, and women being chaste so as not to devalue themselves by being with many men. No one respects adults who are mothered. No one respects them. There's a difference when you maybe have to live or take care of your parents because they are elderly or sick or something like that, than if you just live with your parents and you live off of them well into adulthood or your entire life. People don't find that respectable. There's a reason for that. It isn't because of some social construct. It's because we recognize that those aren't grown-up individuals, men or women. There needs to be female leadership as well. Back in the day, there were strong matriarchs that would guide women and teach them the proper lessons of the world. And because we are all out of balance between the sexes, because we do not understand our nature and how we complement each other, and because men have become weak just for easy, quick sex, instead of chastening themselves, instead of becoming strong through basically suffering in their own passions, where you may have a strong desire to go out and do something, but you say, I'm going to discipline myself. And as Jocko Willink says, and I'm fond of repeating, discipline equals freedom. So we're going to have these oligarchs. We're going to have this crazy topsy-turvy society. And we're going to have the NGOs and the bankers and whomever else bring in this one world government as long as we do not get back to the roots of our nature. And I'm not talking about getting rid of technology. I'm not talking about going back, 100, 200, 300, 1,000 years. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about that we have to lead and fall in line with what our natural proclivities are and stop trying to convince ourselves otherwise, because it's making us sick. It's destroying our society. And what do we see right now? Well, we see a bunch of people who have divided us based on gender and race and social class. And now they're saying, you plebes, you can't be one of us. We have to stop you from invading the system. We have people nominating BLM, a Marxist organization, which has been in part a cause of mass destruction around the globe, but especially here in the U.S. We have organizations saying, Nobel Peace Prize. This is just absolute absurdity. And this is why the meme goes around that we live in a clown world. So anyways, guys, just some thoughts on the top of my head. With all that said, this has been all -1 quick shots, and you all be well.